Vulnerabilities in Panama's financial system have left it open to illegal activities. Consequently, Panama has been aggressive in pursuing policies of transparency and other reforms, and this was well underway prior to the emergence of the leaked documents known as the Panama Papers. And even though revelations from the papers extend beyond Panama, that reporting has served to increase scrutiny of its reform efforts. A recent Wilson Center panel focused on efforts to strengthen international compliance. That discussion provides the focus for this edition of Rewind.
This is clearly a timely topic, but let me say that Eric Olson, my colleague, Cindy Arnson, Director of Latin American Program, Eric, Deputy Director, began planning this program with our colleagues from Panama before the Panama Papers came out. This is a topic of great importance. The government of Panama has been doing a lot of work on transparency in finances and financial transparency in practices, and we're anxious to talk about it. And obviously the Panama Papers have brought attention to this subject in new ways. It is clearly a question of Panama, but it's also a question of the international community. The larger questions involved in the Panama Papers have to do with how the international community deals with offshore banking to ensure that those seeking privacy for legitimate regions are not thrown into those who seek to avoid the law, to avoid taxes, and continue criminal activity.
The one question I have is this, I'm struggling with understanding whether the problem is one of setting standards and those standards are inadequate. I know that Panama's made a great deal of effort to get up to the standards, the international standards. Or is the problem one of just cumplimiento, compliance? And you seem to suggest that we have standards in Nevada, Delaware, but people aren't really complying. And, I'm just, it feels a little bit like we're chasing our tails here. Are we trying to set standards, or are we trying to get people to implement? Or maybe it's a combination of both. I don't know.
So we've shifted from a 2003 standard in the context of the delisting of Panama to 2012 standards that are focusing more on these financial transparency issues. And we shifted from, do you have the laws and authorities in place, to are you applying those in an operational way that delivers results? Those are two big changes, but they also represent the current standard. The current standard, I would argue, is adequate, but it's also relatively new. So seeing countries now have to lift their game from technical compliance with 2003 standards to effective implementation of 2012 standards is a difficult chore, and this is probably the hardest element of those standards to meet. We have to be in a position where what it is that's available is not only current with respect to nominal ownership, but that it's current with respect to beneficial ownership. And that's why it's hard, that's why it's expensive, and that's why this has been a particularly challenging standard to meet.
As I mentioned before, this is not Panama. It's not just Panama. So we're become like, because of the Panama Papers, this unfortunate name, we've become like the poster child for this. And 75% of those companies were not incorporated in Panama. So I can give you that list tomorrow if you want. It's not even going to dent the problem. We have to work this globally and in a very coordinated manner so that we can tackle this problem. And Panama is very willing and able to put forth solutions and proposals on this matter.
The panel has very persuasively made a case for why Panama should not be singled out for a global problem. Are there financial centers, though, that should be singled out? So Hong Kong, for example, had the busiest office, and a lot of the many prominent Chinese politicians and celebrities have their names have emerged in shell companies being funded through Hong Kong. So, and Singapore too figures prominently in these investigations. So what is the sort of level of cooperation of Asian financial centers with OECD and the US and Panama in this, and how optimistic or not is this panel about those countries cooperating in a global effort?
It's a natural question, and it requires a step back to recognize, appreciate that for any country that's going through an examination of its effectiveness in combating financial crime, this is a fundamental issue. But there are other fundamental issues, right? We have countries that haven't brought cases prosecuting money laundering. We have countries that have not forfeited assets. We have countries that do not have the authority to freeze terrorist-related assets outside of Al-Qaeda or ISIS. So we have other fundamental issues that countries have to work on. So to single countries out is difficult because it's really about which issue rather than who's not a player. Everybody is a player, but everyone has things they have to work on.
But it is important to say that in a very short span of time, the commitment of the country, and it's not just coming up with new laws and legislations, is walking the talk. And as I said before, we are serious about it. And those who do not, follow the path will be fined, and they may lose their licenses. What I just want to reinforce, that we are, this is a very important step for Panama in a very short period of time, and that we are already implementing this framework, which is important. It's not just to have the laws, it's to implement them. We're walking the talk.
For more on this and other related topics, visit wilsoncenter.org. Click the Research tab and search under the Latin American program.